We have three major new updates about 3I Atlas, and honestly, each one seems more impossible than the last. First, Harvard scientist Avi Loeb just released calculations showing the weird Sunward tail seems to actually be thousands of fragments traveling together in a swarm. Second, new observations revealed the object is pulsing every 16 hours, but the source of that pulsing is supposedly completely wrong for a natural comet. And third, new scientific data just revealed that 3I Atlas is releasing different chemicals from opposite sides, like it has two completely different surfaces. In this video, I'll break down what is actually happening with 3I Atlas. But before we talk about the pulsing and the chemical anomalies, let's first cover Loeb's latest calculations. As you probably know, 3I Atlas has this tail that points toward the Sun. We call this an anti-tail, and we've been seeing it for months now. Anti-tails have been observed in a few comets, for example, Comet Arendt-Rowland in 1957 and Comet Hale-Bopp in 1997, so this is not completely new. But in those previous cases, we figured out the anti-tails were optical illusions. When scientists observed them from different angles, the geometry changed and the tails revealed to be actually pointing away from the Sun as expected. But with 3I Atlas, we've been watching this structure for months at different viewing geometries and different phases of the orbit, yet the structure stays there. That persistent stability is much harder to explain. So what could actually create this structure pointing toward the Sun? One explanation is that this could still be a viewing geometry effect due to unusually large dust particles. Normal comet dust is tiny particles smaller than grains of sand. Solar wind blows these away easily, but if the dust particles are much larger and heavier, they move more slowly, creating unusual tail shapes that can appear to point sunward from Earth. Most astronomers think this is probably what we're seeing. However, Avi Loeb says that for this explanation to work, the object must be way bigger than what observations have shown, which is around 3 miles in diameter. So, Loeb has proposed a completely different mathematical explanation based on precise orbital mechanics. But before we talk about that, I want to tell you about the 2-day live AI Mastermind training by OutSkill happening this Saturday and Sunday. Seats are limited, so grab yours now with the link in the description. Now you probably know that 3I Atlas is showing non-gravitational acceleration. The object is not following a pure gravitational path. Something is giving it a small extra push, usually from gas jetting off the surface like a tiny rocket. But here is where Loeb's hypothesis gets interesting. What if it is surrounded by a cloud of smaller fragments or debris? These fragments would be traveling through space alongside 3I Atlas, but if they are not producing jets themselves, they would follow pure gravity, no extra push, just the Sun pulling on them. 3I Atlas is getting nudged slightly away from the Sun by its jets, while the fragments are not. Even though this difference is tiny, it adds up. Loeb calculated that at 3I Atlas's current distance, the offset would be about 33,500 meters. When viewed from Earth, this would appear as about 0.7 arc-minutes of angular separation. The November images do show a sunward glow measuring close to 0.7 arc-minutes, so the math matches the observation. If there is a fragment cloud, its combined surface area could be much larger than the main nucleus. Imagine 1 trillion tiny fragments. Together, they weigh just 1,000th of the total mass, but they would have 100 times more total surface area. More surface area means more ice can turn into gas when heated by the Sun. This could explain why 3I Atlas appears so bright for its size and why it seems to be losing more mass than should be physically possible for one solid object. Now, this swarm hypothesis is just that, a hypothesis. Most scientists think the large dust particle explanation is more likely. The November 11th images showed the nucleus still appears to be intact, so if fragments exist, they would have to be very small. Let's talk about the second strange behavior, the most precise periodic pattern ever measured in a comet. 3I Atlas's brightness changes in a perfect rhythm every 16 hours like clockwork. At first, astronomers thought this was just the object spinning, but the brightness changes are way too large to come from rotation alone. More than 90% of the light we see is coming from the coma, not the nucleus. If gas is flowing out at 980 mV, then during one 16-hour cycle, that material travels about 15,900 meters before the next cycle starts. This matches what observers are seeing. The coma appears to be pumping up and down in brightness. We've seen periodic variations in Comet Halley or Siding Spring, but with 3I Atlas, the coma itself is actively pumping. The most likely natural explanation is thermal cycling. 3I Atlas probably has a large pocket of ice on one side. As it rotates every 16 hours, this pocket faces the sun, blasts out gas, and then rotates away. Avi Loeb has pointed out a way to test this. If solar heating is driving the pulses, then the bright jet must always point toward the sun when it pulses. If the jet points in directions that have nothing to do with the sun's position, that would be harder to explain naturally. Now let's talk about the chemicals. The data just came back from the ALMA Radio Telescope, which detects exact molecules in space. ALMA found methanol and hydrogen cyanide. Finding these is normal, but the ratio is absolutely wild. At first, the ratio was 124 to 1, then 79 to 1. In normal comets, this ratio is around 10 to 1. Only one other comet, a freak of nature called C2016R2, has shown something similar. But ALMA also found where these molecules are coming from. Methanol is concentrated on the sunward hemisphere, while hydrogen cyanide is concentrated on the side pointing away from the sun. We're not looking at a uniform ball of ice. One half has a completely different composition than the other. It's like someone took two totally different comets and glued them together. We've seen active regions before, but this is an entire hemisphere showing different chemistry. One theory is that it formed with different ice layers, but since comets spin, it's hard to see how one side would stay so different. The second possible explanation involves cosmic rays, tiny particles flying through space at nearly the speed of light. Maybe they hit one side more than the other and changed the chemistry, but that would require the object to maintain the same orientation for a very long time, which is impossible since it spins every 16 hours. As of right now, no scientist has fully explained this anomaly. Even though I disagree with Avi Loeb's theory about the object being technological, I respect him for actively trying to explore these anomalies. If you watched to the end, please drop me a like and let me know your thoughts in the comments.